Hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome to the second session of our series From Concept to Creation, AI-Powered Development. My name is Moria, and I'm joining you together here with Jordan. We are both working for the Reactor program. And for those of you who are new to the Reactor program, the Reactor is there are community space, in-person and virtual space for developers, for startups, for entrepreneurs that want to learn for free through our events. Our events happening in 10 different locations worldwide. But we also offer virtual events and opportunities to learn, such as today. So you can scan the QR code and visit our website to find out more information about upcoming events that we host at the Reactor. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can also scan this QR code and get notified once a month about the upcoming events that we have, depending on the region where you're signing up from. We will also share the links in the chat, so no worries if you miss the QR codes. The links will be available for you soon. One of the platform that we are using at the Reactor is the Microsoft Learn platform. Microsoft Learn offer free programming events, webinars, on-demand content, certifications, a lot of skilling opportunities for you to learn on different technical content from your home on your own pace. So you can visit the Microsoft Learn. A lot of the sessions that we are delivering in the Reactor are referring you to different opportunities for you to learn, depending on the technology that you are interested in. So this QR will lead you to the Microsoft Learn platform. Another way to learn the Microsoft Learn, we have the AI Learning Hub. The AI Learning Hub actually gathers all the information that you have around AI, the different opportunities that Microsoft offers you to learn. You can filter it depending on your role, what is relevant for you, depending on your skill level, advanced, beginner. So really, there are a lot of opportunities for you to make sure you tailor the offers that you have that right for you. So this link will lead you to the AI Learning Hub. So as I mentioned at the beginning, today is the second session in our series from concept to creation. This series is focused about really how you can take ideas and make them into reality, empowered by AI tools. Today is the second session. You can view the recording of the previous session, and today's session is of course going to be recorded as well. And you can sign up for the next sessions we have in this QR code. So this series is happening once a week on Wednesday at the same time, 12 p.m. UTC. Before we begin the session, and without further ado, I just wanted to go over quickly the code of conduct of Microsoft. Please be friendly and patient in the chat, though it's a virtual event. Take a minute to read the code of conduct of our event. So I'm really honored to present to you today's speaker, Nicole Enders. Nicole is going to talk about the HR companion, how to build a bot with GPT4, Azure AI Studio, and Microsoft Teams integrations. So Nicole, over to you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the session.
Yeah, welcome from my side. So I'm really excited so I can talk about one of my favorite topics at the moment. So we will see how to build an HR companion. Why do I call it companion and not a bot? So companion means that, yes, we can ask questions, we have a conversation, but it can so much more. I know we have a little bit of a limit of time, so I cannot build the whole solution, but at the end, you will see that there are so much more steps you can take, and you will also see how you can learn to build everything you see today. So maybe a few words who I am. So my name is Nicole Enders. I'm working as a managing consultant for an IT consultancy. here in Germany. And if you want to stay in contact with me, or if you have some questions later on, which where we don't find the answer at the session itself, you can find me on LinkedIn and on X. And as you see here, I brought here my favorite hashtags with me. I'm doing a lot of stuff around modern workplace, AI, and if we go through the Microsoft product suite, then we see Microsoft Teams, Power Platform. We have all the Azure AI services which are there. And I also love mixed reality that are sessions I'm doing during the year on other places. So, but let's talk about HR. So HR is one of many topics we have in a company. So you have the HR department, and think about all the people you see here. They have some questions. And yes, a lot of questions may be answered in your intranet, or maybe you have some documents which can be used to get the right answer for your question. But in reality, if I have a question and I don't find the answer in a few clicks or a few minutes, then I call one of my colleagues in the HR department. And maybe in your company it's the same. So think about that. You have the HR department. There is I would say a number of employees which are working there, and you have so much more employees in the whole company that maybe not every time the people have the time to answer your question. And even if you have a question maybe out of the business hours, then you have to wait until the next day. And if we say, okay, we want to find a solution, we want to have a solution where I can ask nearly every time and I get an answer for my question, then a chatbot can be a good solution. So here you will see how to build a chatbot with the Azure AI services. But what do you need? So first of all, you need knowledge. So in my example, maybe you have an intranet, or maybe you already have some documents, but there's so much more. You can have business applications, databases, whatever you have. There's one kind of knowledge which is a little bit difficult. So think about all the knowledge which is in the mind of some colleagues. So for in my example, think about a colleague who is working for a long time in the HR department. She knows uh, the answer for every question, but it's not written down. So you have this implicit knowledge. And that's quite hard because then we can't find a technical solution for this. This person needs to write down what she knows or he knows. But if you have some digital version of the knowledge, then it's fine. And the next part, that's here in the middle section, that the index. In our case, we will go with the Azure AI search because the index splits our knowledge. So think about a document with 100 pages, and 100 pages is a lot of to read if I only have one single question. In the index, you may often hear vector databases in the AI context. That's this area here. In such an index, the 100 pages of a document may be split down to the single page or a single paragraph. It depends a little bit on the technology we are using. Here in Azure AI Search, we talk about chunks. That's something you will hear with vector databases quite often. So chunks are single parts that can be half of a page of your document. This can be a paragraph. It depends on the product we are using. And the last step we also need for a solution is a large language model. Here in this session, we will talk about the GPT ones, but there are a lot of other LLMs out there. We will see them, I think, in the middle of the session, that there are other ones you can choose, and it's up to you which model is the proper one for you. Yeah, and maybe you are now excited how a solution will look like. So the first glimpse here for an architecture chart you see here. Please don't be worried. It looks quite complicated, but I will walk you through. So you see the highlighted part in green every time when we come to a point. So let's start with the knowledge. Knowledge, in my case, is stored in a storage account. So we have an Azure Blob Storage we are using because I have some documents. So HR said to me, okay, I have some documents, and you have to store them somewhere. Yeah, and how does it look like? So my solution, I start with a resource group. I called it Reactor HR Companion. You see that at the top. And in this resource group, I created 3 resources. The first one was the Azure AI Studio, but it comes up with 3 resources. So I only say, okay, I need the Azure AI Studio, but then I have 3 resources in my resource group. The next part is the Azure AI Search. It's called Search Service if you look on the type. And the last one is a storage account. And let's have a look inside. So if I have my storage account, they are so-called containers. So you can think about folders, for example. And I have here a container which is called base docs. And here is my knowledge. These are different documents I have here with all the HR relevant information. You could also upload new ones. Think about if you already have the file and you want to overwrite it. So think about updated documents as well. And yeah, after the storage account, the next important part is the index. I will now show you how the Azure AI search is working. We will see when we come to the Azure AI Studio on the left side of this chart here that the Azure AI search is some kind of hidden in the Azure AI Studio. But I want to show you how it looks like without the Azure AI Studio first, because then it's quite easier to understand. So let's go to the Azure AI search. Let's see the second one. We see here. And if I open this, I have to look a little bit on the left navigation. So if you open the area with the search management, you see there's some kind of indexes, indexers, and data sources. Data sources, that's something which can have a relation with our storage account. And yes, it is. So if I click on add data source, I have to think about which data source type is relevant. For us, it's the Azure Blob Storage. But as you see, you can also relate to a database, for example. Think about a good name because you need to find it later on. So I go with a prefix for all my artifacts in my solution. And then we select the storage account and the blob container. And also think about if you want to enable deletion tracking. This means that our index does not contain the information later on if we delete a document in our storage account. So data source, that would be the data connection. And now we need to think about which information do we want to store in our index. So if you say, okay, we want to create a new index here from scratch, only one field is there. That's the ID, because every record in our index needs to be identified. And then we can say, it is filterable, is it searchable? This is something you maybe know from search solutions. But we need some more fields, and we will see this later on, how it's working. So here, if you see, okay, we want to add new fields, you can go with the data type as well. And now it's an important part that we create an indexer. So the indexer, that's the job which is running to check our knowledge and then split the information down and put it into the index. So you see here, we give it a name, and then we have to select the created index and the data source. And if we would configure everything, then you can go with a schedule there also. So here in the moment, you see that's only job which will run one time, but we can also go with a schedule and say, okay, then it's important, do we want to make an incremental search? So do we want to do only the new documents, the updated documents, or do we want to recreate the index every time? If you go back to the overview, you see there is a button for import and vectorize data. And that's the wizard which walks us through the parts I've shown you on the manual side. So here, select the storage account and the blob container again. Now we see the deletion tracking again, and there we can say, okay, do we go with the out of the box part? I recommend that you do this for the first time. If you have more requirements, you can use the other option, and then you have to decide on which metadata do you decide to delete your information. So now on the second step in the wizard, that's the time where we need to check which Azure OpenAI service is the right one for us. So there, the deployment models are quite important. So we will see the models in the Azure AI Studio a little bit later. I select one which is working. So I have a deployment model, and then I need to check if I want to vectorize images. So in my case, I have only documents which with text. There are no images inside. And last but not least, there is the step where I can check the fields of my index. You see now we have a lot of more fields, and I can also schedule my indexing. So you don't need to go once. You can say, okay, maybe on a daily base or a monthly base, I want to do my indexing. And here again, give your index a good name. And if you're fine, then you can click on create. I'm not doing this because we see this in the Azure AI Studio a little bit later. But now with this information, you're prepared. So you see what's going on in the storage account. You see what's going on in the Azure AI search. And that's the part where we go on the left side of the chart and see what's the Azure OpenAI service. So Azure OpenAI service is behind the Azure AI Studio. That was one of the resources which was created automatically for us. And if you select this one, then you will see that there's not so much to configure. That's more from a developer perspective, because we see all the different APIs we can use right here. You see the keys first, and then at the bottom you see what's going on with, for example, language API, with Dolly. So if you want to work with images, but you see also on the tabs that you can go with the API for speech, for content safety. So if you want to do some filtering, so not every information can be added, or that you have a filter which information is provided by your solution at the end. And you see here, document intelligence is not visible. So we need to go with the three dots. So if we want to do some document data extraction, for example, then this would be a proper one. But let's go to the Azure AI Studio now. So we are checking the other resource. And here we need to zoom in a little bit because it's a little bit too small due to the resolution we have. Yeah, and the Azure AI Studio has a lot of navigation items here on the left side. So let's check them first. Yeah, but there's one step, because maybe you did the same as I. So maybe you worked with the Azure OpenAI Studio in the past, and now you're thinking, okay, Azure OpenAI Studio and Azure AI Studio, what's the real difference between these two? So I see in the Azure OpenAI Studio the notification, okay, it's only there for a few weeks from now on. Please go to the Azure AI Studio. Yeah, and the Azure OpenAI Studio has some kind of limitation. So it's focusing on the GPT models, on the models which are provided by OpenAI. And the Azure AI Studio has a lot of more offering. So we have there models from Hugging Face, we have the meta models, and so on. And it also is a wrapper for many Azure AI services. So computer vision is in there, not only the Azure AI search You have all the speech options and so on in there, and that's something you are missing in the Azure OpenAI Studio. Yeah, and if we check out what's offered for us, you see, okay, they have there something which is called projects. We will see this for a solution. You have some get started items right here. So we have the model catalog, and we can check all the different AI models. You see, they're provided from many different companies or um, providers as well. You can go with the model benchmarks as well. So if we go to model benchmarks, maybe you want to find a good model for a special case. So maybe you want to extract information from documents. Then you can go with the filter options at the top and select the right model for you. We also have the prompt catalog, and the prompt catalog, it has some, I would say, some ideas. So these are example prompts, and if you want to use them to check which model is now working in the best way for you, you can do this. And here, for the navigation item AI services, you find all the other AI services which are available in the Azure AI Studio. So Vision is there, for example, as well. The playgrounds we'll see at the next step, but first we need to look for the shared resources. And the first part is that we go to users and we check which users already have access. So some can have access based on the resource group or some other permissions in your Azure tenant. But if the people don't have access, you can add a new user right here. These are all the users which are available in Entra. And you can set a role for us. Azure AI developer is enough, but you can also go with the three default groups: owner, contributor, and reader as well. So when I add these users, they are now here. And so Anna, for example, can now work together with me in this Azure AI Hub, it's called. So here, the connections, that's also something which is nice if you already have some other solutions. So maybe an Azure AI search, for example, as we saw this in one of the first steps. So you can add a connection, and then this Azure AI search is used right here. But now the deployments are the most important part. So we have the knowledge, we have an index, and now we need our LLM. So if we go to deployments, we are here in the management section. So that these are our shared resources which can be used for every project we create. So, and if you want to deploy a model, that's quite easy. So if you click on deploy model, you see here, I can go with a base model, or I can do a fine tuning of my model. If we use one of the default ones, you have these filtering options. So if you want to go with the provider, or maybe you want to check if there's some model with a special deployment option. But the last one, that's quite more important. So I need an embedding model first. So the embedding model is important for the indexing, for example. Yeah, if I select one, I can leave it as it is regarding the deployment name. And then if you click on configure, you can choose the model version. You can also set the tokens per minute rate limit. So here in this case, it's already set in a good way for us. But we will see I want to add a second model. So I need to add my GPT-4, or maybe I go with GPT-4o because it's working much better at the moment. So I do the same again. And now I'm using the search here at the top, and I'll look for GPT-4o. I use the full one. I could also go with the mini one, but in my case, I want to use the large version I have here. And if I click on customize, you see the token limit limit is quite low, so I need to configure it a little bit, because otherwise I will get an error if I want to chat with my solution at the end. So check the model version again. So sometimes you want to go with an older version. That's when a new model version is published. Sometimes you need to go with an older one. Yeah, now it's time that we go to the playground. So the playground, that's where I check out if my instructions are in a good way, if my data is working, and if everything is fine in the playground, then I build my whole solution. So let's open everything in the playground. And the first thing is I can change the deployment. Here in our case, we come from our deployment, so we don't want to change something. And here the next part, that's the instructions for our model. So it's not so much information right here. We will set this in the next step, but we have a little bit more, so we can also add our data. But here, the playground tells us you need a project. So think about a project which would you create in Visual Studio when you want to develop a new solution. That's something similar here in the Azure AI Studio as well. Yeah. So at the end, we could deploy everything, but the first part is that we need to create a project right now. And the project, that means that we are here at the bottom of our chart. So we saw all the stuff on the left side. We saw the preparation for search and for the storage. And now you see it's our real solution, which needs to deploy it later on to teams. So let's create a project. We can do this here with this button, or we could also go on the left navigation. You see there's something like all projects. There was also a button for creating a new project on the hub overview, but here that's a place where we see all our projects at the end. And here I call it Reactor HR Companion. So that's my wrapper here for everything I now need to configure. And you may see that the left navigation will now change a little bit. Not so much, so we will have the get started area as well. We will have a playground area, but the playground area will get a few more menu items, and then you see tools and components right there at the bottom as well. Yeah, and data and indexes as components, that's something which is quite familiar for us because we saw this in the Azure AI search. That's what I meant when saying that the Azure AI search is under the hood of the Azure AI Studio. And here I can select my data source. You see that's called this connection. So it's not that you create your new data, so you create a connection to your data. And here in our case, we can create a new index. Maybe we have already one. So that was when we created the index in the Azure AI search manually. But I'll show you another way. So if you only have a few documents and you don't have a storage account, you can go with the upload document option right here as well. Select all your documents which are relevant. And after the upload is finished, you can select your Azure AI service. Here in this case, not everything is listed. You need to go with this dialog right here. You connect to the proper HR companion Azure AI service, and now you name your index again. So I call it vector index reactor HR companion. So that's our wording where we find everything. And here we select a virtual machine for the indexing job. So in my case, I only have a few documents, but think about that you have a huge database or whatever. Then it can be a good idea to go with a much more powerful virtual machine, so the indexing is not taking so long. Yeah, now you see that the job is already running. We can go to the job details. So the job details, that's something we see here. It's opened in a new tab, and it doesn't matter if you say, okay, this part is too complicated. It's only quite helpful if something goes wrong. So if you get an error message, for example, and you can check out the different steps, but you have the status overview on the right side here as well. And if we see this, you see, okay, it's chunking our documents. So these are the information parts. Then it's creating the search index in the next step. And at the end, it's registering our index. So that's quite important, because otherwise we cannot use this in the playground at the end. So if everything is finished, we can go to the data area again, and we see that our vector index is right there. And that's it. So that's the part where we go to the project playground for chat again. So the project playground looks the same as it did for the Azure AI Hub as well. We have our deployment, and we have the part where we have to add our instructions. So in the past, it was called a system message or a system prompt. Now Microsoft is talking about instructions. So think about a colleague. You would tell him or her how to behave if somebody has a question and so on. And that's nearly the same. So I asked ChatGPT for a good instruction here for this session. And it said, okay, the HR assistant should be clear and helpful, and should be professional, supportive, and approachable. And if it has some questions where it doesn't have an answer, it should guide the user to contact the HR department. So you see much more information, but it's really important that you don't forget to save. It's only this one save button here in the error. Everything else is saved automatically, but not the instructions. And now if you go to the data region here again, you see a drop down, and now we can select our index. And if you select the index, you see that there's a loading spinner right here. So it's saved automatically. And after it's finished, we can go and check our solution. So maybe we go with the parameters. So think about the max response. We also prepared this for the deployment of the GPT-4o as well. And think about the temperature of your chatbot. So should it be precise? So should it only answer based on the documents if it finds the exact information, or can it be a little bit creative? So think about hallucination. Here with 0.7, that's a good starting point. You need to configure it based on your experience when you are testing your solution. So here in my case, I say, okay, I'm a new employee. What do I need to know? And if I send this message, now the deployment model is working together with the index we already have. And it says, okay, I find some information regarding recruitment and onboarding. It's not finished at the moment, so you don't see a loading spinner while it's working. So, and here it finds much more information. And at the end, if you go to the references, these are called citations. If you go there, you see, okay, it identified 5 documents, and it said, okay, I give you the information. You don't see the document in the expected format here in the citation. You see only the document part. Yeah, and if you go on the settings, there's something we won't see in this session. I only want to show you that it's available here. You can also activate the option that you can use speech to text or text to speech. So speech to text means that you can talk to the chatbot and it translates or transforms your voice signal into some text so that it's chat based at the end as well. And the other option means that the bot can talk to you. You saw that there are some voice schemas you can select. So you can select if it's a female or male voice, for example. So it's up to you. But let's start with the chatbot first. So, because if we are fine with testing, so in my case, I tried out some stuff. I can go to deploy, and you can deploy it as a web app, to Teams, or to Copilot Studio. Let's go with the web app first, because at the end, everything which is deployed to Teams is a web app. So we can go with this option, and then you are more flexible how to use your solution at the end. I name it. You have the same prefix again. And now I need to select a location. I recommend if you start with one location for your resource group, then you use this for all your resources. In my case, that's Sweden Central. And at the end, you need to go with a pricing plan. I use basic because there also was the option free, but free is only for one web app in your tenant. And here in my case, the free version is already taken. So I deploy my model. Yeah, and while deploying, that can take a long time. Same as it's for the indexing as well. Then we pause a little bit, and at the end you have the launch button right here at the top. And if you click on it, then your web app is opened in a new tab. Before you can test it, you have here the screen to consent the requested permissions. You can do this for the whole organization if you are an administrator. Otherwise, if a user will do this, only the user consent is there. So for the single person, I do this for the whole organization, so the screen does not appear for everybody else. Yeah, and here at this point, if you don't get this window, then maybe your web app is not ready. So this can be sometimes you get the succeeded notification, but the process is still running in the background for some stuff. But then please try it again 10 minutes later or so, and you should get the screen. And here in this screen, we can do the testing again. So I do some kind of a variation. So I'm writing again that I'm a new employee, but now I ask, what do I need to know at my first day? So this can be quite helpful for onboarding, for example. And here in our case, we see that there will be a welcome meeting, an orientation session, and so on, and we have less citations right here. So if you see the citation here on the right side, you see again, it's not the final document. The document is here at the top, so that's only a link. But the text we see, that's the chunk, so that's the information part we have. So last but not least, and then the architecture chart is complete. So we have the Teams app. And yes, you saw the option to deploy to Teams directly from the Azure AI Studio. There's also an option in the Azure OpenAI Studio, but for me, it's not working in the way I was expecting. So I thought, okay, I click on the button and then at the end of a visit, I have my Teams app right there. That's not, so it's only a zip file which is downloaded to your PC, and then you have to work with Visual Studio Code to do the rest of the deploying. Here in this case, I want to show you how it's going with the developer portal. That's an app which is available in Microsoft Teams out of the box. If you don't see this, maybe your administrator blocked this app. You will see what's how blocking looks like if you go to the administrator panel. But If it's there, please check it out. So I already opened it right here. And you see there are different tabs. We only need the tab for apps. So if you click on apps, there's a button to create a new app. And that's some kind of a registration. So you are not creating a Teams app. So something right like deployment or so. It's only a registration of an existing web app right here. And the first thing is we go with basic information. The short name is already set for us. That was in the dialog. And now we need a description in a short version and in a longer version. So I add that right here. And if you scroll down, you can set the developer information. So who is the developer? So I do this with my name. And then maybe you have a website for a company. So in my case, I add the website of my created web app. Here's my final solution. But for privacy policy and terms of use, that's the same. So maybe you already have a link to this, or maybe it's in your internet or whatever. So you can link to this. This is only information which is provided in the app later on. The application client ID, that's important. You find this as shown here in Entra. So in Entra, you will have an app registration, which is done automatically for you. And here for branding, we can set an icon, we can set an accent color, choose an icon, whatever you want to. But at the end, what's really important, so if we go here to the app features, we need to register our app in the needed way. So for my example, I want to have a menu item on the left navigation. That's a so-called personal app. And the personal app needs a name for sure, but it also, that's really important, it needs a content URL, and that's the link to our web app. So the scope is already set. I say, okay, the context is a personal tab. That's if we would need some information from Teams itself. Here in our case, we don't have some single sign-on, some special authentication requirements. So that's quite nice. So we can say, okay, we want to publish our app now. So here, yeah, on the top right corner, we see the publishing button, and we go with the middle option. So we want to publish the app to our organization. And at the moment, it's not published. So we have this next button. So that's some kind of a double publish we have here. Feels a little bit like so. Yeah, and now you see that it's submitted. So it's not published. So it's available for the others. We need to go to the Teams Admin Center. And if you are not an administrator, then you would need an admin right at this moment. So you go to Manage Apps right here, search for your app. And now you see that it's blocked. And blocked means that we need to go to the details. So click on the link right here and check the information. So we see all the information which was entered in the developer portal app. And at the top, you see the publish button. You could also reject this app, but we don't want to do this. So we click on publish. And if we do so, you get a security question. But if you confirm this, then the publishing process is done. So you see the notification that it can take a few hours until your app will be available. In many cases, you are lucky that it's already there, but if you don't find it immediately, then it can take a while. So you need to check this a few hours later. But if it's there, then you can go here in the Teams client, and I searched for reactor because I know that's part of the app name. And I said, okay, I want to open this. And if I open it, then you see that the web app is now integrated into Teams, and I can ask a similar question. So now I ask if it's if it's my first week and what do I need to know. But as you see here, the first day agenda with the welcome meeting and the orientation session is there as well. And now I have more references because I had uh, um, another question for this, but the document which is linked, so the onboarding guide is there again. Yeah, and now you have seen the, I would say the first version of your HR companion. But what if you want to do some customizing or you want to have a complete other UI or whatever, then you can check out the GitHub repository. You see this right here. And this can be a good starting point to build your own solution. We did the same. So if you go to the resource group back again and you select your web app right here, you see that here's the default domain. So that's the URL we registered into Teams, but you also see the external repository URL. And if you check this, then you are here in GitHub. You see the source code which is behind your solution. And you can check how it can be configured. So maybe you only want to change the icon and maybe the welcome text, but the other stuff is already fine for you. So you can go with this and you see that there is a lot of to read here in the documentation. And also if you want to contribute here at GitHub with other developers, that's also fine. So we checked this and we said, okay, we want to build our own solution. So if you go with the GitHub example, you only will have one app service in your solutions. You see here in this chart, I have two app services because we split it between back end and front end. And here in this scenario, think about your back again in Teams. You want to go with the M365 Copilot layout a little bit. We did this and had here our HR companion and said, okay, we have some example prompts to start with. If I click on one, you have the same interaction as we see this in the other chatbot solution. So maybe with the citations, maybe you want to do a little bit more regarding your corporate UI or whatever. And here in our case, we have the history. So all the other questions I already asked on the left side, and I can create a new conversation there as well. So what are the lessons learned we had? So our lessons learned, yes, the Azure AI Studio can be your development environment. We saw that there are different projects, so I could create a second project, a third one. So these are some kind of folders of wrappers for our AI solutions. You can prepare your data maybe with the Azure AI Search. So if you already have Azure AI Search and you are doing indexing, then you don't need to do this from scratch. You can create a connection to your existing index. The Azure OpenAI Studio can be an alternate option for the Azure AI Studio in some cases. So think about the Azure AI Studio with that, the creation of the web app. At the moment, there is a lack regarding the security and the authentication parts. And if you have some problems and you don't find a good solution, then you can currently check if the OpenAI Studio is a little bit more helpful. And at the end, everything which is created. So if you have a web app, then you can integrate it into Microsoft Teams. And you can also implement a complete custom solution. So if you don't want to go with the GitHub repo, then you can build your solution by your own and do the registration in Teams at the end as well. Yeah, and HR was only one example. So if you think about knowledge management in general or some business processes, if you want to have a companion who is doing actions, so you don't want to open a business application, for example, and you want to do this via the companion, then you can implement this as well. That's a little bit more work to do, so this would not fit in the session, but that's also a good point to add to your companion. And if you now want to start, if you want to build your own solution, there are some really good learning paths in Microsoft Learn. So I brought 3 with me. They are for all the stuff you already saw here. So if you want to develop your own custom copilots with Azure AI Studio, that's the first one. If you want to understand how Azure OpenAI service is working, that's a good combination with the first one. And you can go with the one here in the middle. And because at the end, everything is a web app, so implementing Azure App Service web apps is also a good point. There's are also some modules regarding security in there. And then I think you should be prepared to build your own HR companion or your own whatever companion you want to build. So now I'm curious if there are some questions.
Yes, we do have some questions. Nicole, I'm just looking at them, and I think, yes, Jordan already shared it here on the screen. So the first question was, which data sources can this person use for the AI solutions?
Uh, uh, it I think if you are looking for data sources, that was something I presented at the beginning. So in my case, I said, okay, I have a few documents. I store them in Azure Blob storage. That's only one example. So maybe you have information in intranet. Or you have a huge database. So we saw examples in one dropdown for the indexing regarding Azure Cosmos DB or a SQL database and so on. And you could also go with custom connectors. So think about a business application you have. It's important that this business application is available via a gateway or whatever. So if it has a web API, that's a good starting point. And then you can integrate your business application, or I mean the data of your business application as well. So there are not so many limits regarding the indexing and then the usage of your data.
Okay, the next question is, can we get Terraform to create this environment resources? Tal says he would like to demo it internally. Is it possible?
I'm sorry, I don't have this the stuff I've shown here as a Terraform template. But if you walk through, I think that's the first link I shared here from Microsoft Learn. If you walk through, that's quite easy done. So if you're going these 3 main steps. Then you have the storage account, the Azure AI Search, and then the Azure AI Studio. These are the resources you really need. And then you have this wizard you saw. So yes, a template that's good if you want to go from maybe development environment later on to production or to a testing environment. But for this demo, I've not prepared this.
Okay. Does this process use RAG? If not, how can one implement it?
If we are talking about the Azure AI search, so I was talking about the index, and I said, okay, we have the vector database as I would say some kind of a synonym You don't see a real database if you are working with Azure AI Search, but that's the RAG concept we see there. So it's quite important for you that if you are aware of RAG and the concept behind it, that you think about which fields are necessary in your index. And yes, then you can implement more and more. So you can think about content safety. So it's content filters right there. You can completely check how your vector database is built. Yeah, but that's more advanced stuff. That's why I didn't show this here in this session, because otherwise I would need a second hour or so for this. But yes, if you go with Azure AI Search, you have so many options right there.
Great. So this one is a bit long. How the tags which are defined in SharePoint for the documents that are used as a source data in Azure Blob storage can be transferred there and used within Azure OpenAI Studio to develop app. You want to take a
Whew.
second? Yes.
That's a
Just here.
yeah, that's a long question. So, if I understand it correctly, so we have documents in SharePoint. We are using metadata right there. So maybe with tags that can be the keywords which are available. So the enterprise keywords, but that can be every other metadata as well. So if you add more and more columns in your document libraries in SharePoint, that's important that you get them in the solution there as well. So maybe you were missing here in Azure special options for the data source that you didn't see SharePoint right there. That's quite funny, because in Copilot Studio, which is the low-code option for this the stuff I've shown here with Azure, you have the option to go with SharePoint documents already. Here in this case, you would need to build the custom solution to get the information from SharePoint. So maybe that can be a Logic app or a runbook you are doing there. So other Azure resources which are needed, and then you put this in your Azure Cosmos DB, a SQL database, or whatever, and then you are prepared for the indexing in the Azure AI Search.
Okay. Is Azure OpenAI Studio more cutting edge than Azure AI Studio?
The Azure Open, oh my God, I need to start again. The Azure OpenAI Studio, that is the option which was available first. I built some solutions right there. It had or it already has a limitation for the OpenAI models. So you won't find Hugging Face, Llama, Mistral, and so on there. And you don't have the option to go with projects. So you say, okay, I have a project, I want to build a AI solution, and I have a second project, and so on. So you don't go with these options in the Azure OpenAI Studio. And you also have a notification at the moment that Azure OpenAI Studio may not be available in a few weeks. So I don't know about a special date or so, but if I see such a notification and it directs me a little bit to go to another solution, then I say, okay, it's time to check it out. And Azure OpenAI Studio has this notification and says, okay, please use the Azure AI Studio. So from my perspective, Azure AI Studio is the way to go with. And Azure OpenAI Studio is, well, for me, some kind of a backup if something is not working in the Azure AI Studio.
We got another question about the inquiry before we go ahead with the next one, about the GitHub link and the resources that you shared before. So I think it was the 3 links that you shared to learn. So we had 2 people asked about that. If you can maybe reshare the slide. Yes. So here you can find, these are the additional resources. And if you have your GitHub repository, Nicole, maybe that if you can share, if not, yes, perhaps you can reach out after the session and we can reply to this one. So here are the resources to learn. So the next question is it possible to customize chatbot presented UI presented in Teams or web, for example, to enhance references presentation to user?
Yeah, we saw the icon, and then I think start chatting also, and in a in another font size the description. These are options you can configure, but if you want to have a complete other UI, maybe you want to go with multiple icons and so on, then you need to build your own UI. So then you're real in the developer world. So first option was the GitHub repo and then a little bit configuring. That can be a good point, but if you want to have a more flexible solution, maybe it should look very similar to maybe the M365 Copilot or whatever, then you need to build your own solution. For example, we did this with a standalone web application using React, but it's up to you which programming language, which frameworks you are using if you build your custom solution.
Okay, so I was about to say we are on time. Let's take this one last question, and then before we end, let's say we have it's another a bit long. I'll read it out. Let's say we have three-quarter chatbot and users are asking to only engage with the chatbot through a single UI app. Maybe something similar to a composed model in Document Intelligence Studio.
Mm.
Maybe you want to ask
Yeah,
for
I'm not sure
we understood. Yeah.
about the question itself. But I can share something I'm thinking about at the moment as well. So I showed the example with the HR topic. But if you have a company, then you have a lot of more people who have some answers for your questions. So think about uh, IT services, for example, and maybe you have different chatbots at the end, but you want to have one single point of entry, so some kind of a dispatcher or whatever. And I'm at the moment I'm thinking about a solution where you say, okay, I have only a corporate chatbot. So I have one chatbot I'm using from a user perspective, but behind this you have different companions or agents or chatbots or however we call them. They know enough about each other. So you start with the dispatcher, and he knows, okay, we call us a question about HR, and then I'm talking to the HR companion, and if I have some other issues, and that's maybe an IT topic, then the HR companion hands it over to the IT companion. But then you need to think about the solutions, so you need to check how your chatbots can interact with each other.
Okay, so I think we are just a bit over time. Before the end of the session, I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Nicole, for this great session and for all the questions. As I mentioned, the session is available on demand on the Reactor YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope to see you next week again at the same time for our next session. And thank you, Nicole. Have a good day, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.